and the people you're actually trying to take down are the ones that are trafficking our children, stealing 65% of our money in taxes, making us renters on our own property, saddling us with 4% unrealized capital gains taxes every year on our homes. That's the British system.
Join us with special guest Tom Luongo right here on ESW.
Good morning, afternoon, everybody. Nick Petrozello here. I have the distinct pleasure of having our friend Tom Luongo on the show. Tom has excellent analysis, and we're in a very divisive, we're in a very tough time right now. And as we've talked about before, anybody who has an intelligent, well put together idea, whether I agree with it or not, I am very happy to have on this show. And, I do spend a fair amount of time in your Patreon and now your Slack. And so we're in there chatting and stuff. And so I'm really happy to have you here. And how the heck are you, Tom?
I'm good, Nick. And it's been fun having you popping into the conversation because, it's funny. I just enjoy watching different people. They come and go over time. And, now we have our regulars and then we have others that come and go. And it's fun and it's great. It's interesting to see how people approach the, whatever it is that they're interested in, how they approach it, and they approach it differently. We don't have a whole lot of actual traders because we don't really do a lot of that trading analysis. I wish they did, but they don't. And they don't ever ask me any questions. So I wish they would, but every once in a while. But most of the time I try to give them, what I'm thinking twice a week during the week anyway. So it's rare that, we're going to get outside of that framework of whatever I'm presenting on the market reports every twice a week. So, it's been fun. So,
yeah, it's a blast. I'm happy to be in there. And in the vein of trading, everybody take a look in the description. A couple of things. Firstly, there's a free algo in there. And Tom, I know you and I talked about this. I'd be happy to walk you through all that stuff. It's pretty fun and it's really easy to do. It's a video that you see me create the algo, turn it into code using Grok, and then I show you the tech that traders use to connect that algo to their exchange so they can trade while they're not sitting there. Now, mind you have to optimize the algo for your own trading. You might even have to adapt it. We teach you how to do that at algofactor.tech. And secondly, we have, I've got your Patreon in the link, Tom. I'll probably throw your X up in there too. Look, we have a fair amount of this audience who absolutely loves your work, Tom. And then we have another part of the audience who is in disagreement, and of course that's natural and it's healthy. Either way though, whether you agree or not, I really recommend checking out Tom's work because among the many reasons I like your work is your ability to understand financial plumbing and then sort of show that as a reflection of what is or may be going on. And there have been countless times over the years that I've been in your Patreon where you have, not countless, but there have been numerous times, let's just say, where you've been correct. And by the way, the last thing I will say about your work is that you're always willing to look back and say, hey, I wasn't right about this. And that this world is kind of rare. So I'm going to turn it over.
Trained not to. Honestly, Nick, we're trained not to be wrong, right? I find it really funny. I remember when I first went to work for Newsmax, almost 13 years ago now, and I was being taught how to write a financial newsletter by my editor. I got the job and I immediately went to work on writing what I thought was good copy and my editor just took it and threw it in the garbage and said redo the whole thing, right? And because you're
not frustrating.
There's a particular style of writing that you're supposed to do there where you're in charge, you're the leader, you're the guy. And they train us to write this way, just like, and you can still see it in the guys who were trained this way. Like I can name names if you want to give you an idea of how they write. I'm like, oh, he's still doing that same thing today. And I watch it and I'm like, and it's the same way we train our politicians. It's the same way we train our salesmen. It's this, you're the alpha, you're in charge, don't show weakness, and when you make a mistake, acknowledge it and move on. And then, and then it goes into acknowledge it as best you can and then move on. Like, I find that whole thing tiresome. I also find it disingenuous. I also find it dishonest. And fundamentally, I think it's dishonest because what you're doing is you're giving people fish as opposed to teaching them how to fish. And so to me, I would rather teach you how to look at geopolitics, how that interfaces with markets, how markets actually trade. Here's what I do technically to help you read a chart and have some basic understanding of how the world works, so that you can go and you can apply that. And if you're not, and if you don't want to be a professional at this, that's fine. But at the very least, you have enough information and you have enough grounding in the way these markets work and the way this stuff works, that when you sit down with your financial guy, because I don't have a Series 6, I don't have a Series 7, I don't have any of that shit. I'm just a dude on the internet giving you my opinion. You have to sit down with your professional and work out a strategy, and you need to be able to push back on him when he just gives you the 60-40, bond equity split thing, because you want the fucking Edward Jones, and that's just stupid. That's going to get you killed. It's going to make him money, and it's not going to make you money, and you're going to him to make you money. So that's always been my attitude towards this, and that informs everything that I give you. That attitude is everything. So whether you agree with me or disagree with me, and I understand why people would disagree, because they don't see the world that way. They haven't looked at it from that perspective. I get it. Like it's a big complex world out there. The thing that I really want people to really get is that there is no single vector analysis. Even when I go on my rants about City London, like that's a strategic decision on my part. And it's not a strategic decision to body swerve away from something else. The City of London thing is the thing that everybody else body swerves away from. I lean into it. I lean into it on purpose to show you overwhelming receipts of why this is an important aspect of the big picture. And it may wind up being the Rosetta Stone, the keystone, because the minute I embrace that and then put it into everything that I thought I knew previously, my predictive powers went up. There was my back testing of history, my back testing of markets, my back testing of geopolitics. You want to put it in trader terms. The correlations went through the roof. It went from about 60% hit rate to an 85 to 90% hit rate. And this is with fungible data. It's not even good data. It's not like data you can go grab and manipulate with real math. You're doing Bayesian statistics of fungible data through intelligence psyops and everything else, and having a better predictive model than everyone else, or most everybody else. Like, sorry, folks, I'm going until I'm proven horrifically wrong. I'm going to stick with the algorithm that I've built for analyzing geopolitics and markets. Now, I live in fear that day comes every freaking day, because I'm out here on a tightrope. I'm out here on a live wire doing my thing. Like, if I'm wrong, this all goes crashing right down, and I ain't fit for any other goddamn job in this world at this point. And I'm looking at it, and I'm 58 years old. Like, I don't have any backup plan. This is the plan. And so, I know that there's a contingent of the audience that wants to believe, well, he's getting part of the $7,000 club, or he's getting paid by that guy. It's fucking horse shit. I'm living in a fucking trailer in rural Tennessee, building a house, because I have enough people in my Patreon, which you can pay me every month, like you, to make a decent living doing this. That's it. It's nothing more complicated than that. But, you can say it 1,000 times, but people don't want to listen, because they'd rather believe some comfort food about how it's all the Jews, or it's all this, or it's all that, or it's all this vector, or it's all that vector. It's not one vector. It's a big friggin' ugly world out there. And everybody has their agendas, and everybody's agendas change when the board state changes. And so people who were allies yesterday may not be allies tomorrow. Why? Because, I don't know, have you ever watched a friggin' Ocean's 11 movie or something like that? People's loyalties change. If you're a grifter, your loyalties change the minute the angle changes. Do I have to go watch Rounders again, or go watch anything? Go watch any of these movies where you're watching these sociopaths navigate complex situations. Those are model stories for what we're watching in geopolitics.
I
And
would
I don't
take
know
it.
about you, but I do it as a function of having played thousands of hours of board games where I have to not hold a grudge against the guy who fucked me over the last term because this other guy's now in the league and he was just doing what he needed to do. And I don't take it personally.
Yeah, I would interchange grifter with survivor.
Sure. That's a
You know,
perfect. Like some of these guys are grifters, some of them are survivors, right? And that's a nicer way of putting it. I mean, at the end of the day, you know, the problem is that we're all in survivor mode, right? If you really stop to think about it, like a lot of the criticism I get is just the expression. I become the mirror of people's own fight or flight. And I get it. And believe me, guys, I have my own mirror out there for what my personal fight or flight thing is. So I get it. It does not that I make that statement without any judgment. I really do. I get it. But here's the thing. You're in survivor mode. You're not in trust mode. You're in fight or flight mode. You're just trying to survive. And because of that, your hackles are up, your spidey senses tingling left and right, and you don't know what to do. I got news for you. If you back away from that, this is what I've had to do because I like to borrow trouble from the future just like everybody else does. I like to catastrophize. I'm good at it. My wife has to yell at me all the time to stop doing so. And you take a step back, you pet your dog, you touch some grass, you smoke a cigar, you do whatever the hell that brings you some comfort, and you go, who's making me feel like this? Is it Tom? Or is it these guys? Or is it those guys? Or is it this? Or somebody conveniently giving that thing to me so that it can make sense to me? Because that's what they do, right? The narcissists love to hand you chaos, hand you anxiety, and then after they've got you in that state, hand you the convenient solution that it wasn't them that did it in the first place. And then they go from being your antagonist to your savior like that. That's and the psychology of that at the geopolitical level, at the market level, it's everywhere.
Yeah, you just took it where I was going to go. So, in the vein of this, survivorship, narcissism, problem, reaction, solution, all these things all fit into where we are with Iran. And I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to you. I was thinking we could hit it from two angles, given that we have the time for it today. The first angle is the obvious angle. What the hell's going on in Iran? And I'm going to tell you what I'm leaning towards, or at least increasingly moving towards in a very open way, that Trump's captured by Israel and really has no choice but to do what he's doing. And a lot of people have far less charitable things to say about that.
Yep.
Whoops, did the wrong thing here. Give me 1 second. There we are. So, I am leaning in that direction.
Sure.
I don't like that this is going on. I understand that you have some theories as to how this can be either turned to our advantage or, and heaven forbid I should say it, is part of some kind of plan. So I'd love to hear your opinion on how it's all going to be okay. Tom, tell me it's going to be okay.
I'm not going to tell you that it's going to be okay.
Well, I'm joking.
I won't blow smoke up anybody's ass. I will say that this is a war, and that in war you do what you have to do to win. Now, I don't trust the Israelis. I don't like the Israelis. I've said it many times. There are multiple factions within Israel that are still trying to play the great game on behalf of their British benefactors, because at the end of the day, Israel was created by the Brits, and that's a pretty well understood concept. And there are others that are trying to get out from underneath that. We have a country that doesn't really, just like kind of going through all of it, right? Like many things. And again, I've said this many times. I despise the Israelis, or I despise Israel as a state as much as I despise the Iranians or Iran as a state. The people are they're always the friggin' victims in all of this. So the European people, the American people, the Iranian people, the Palestinians, the Israelis, everyone, they're all victims of this power politics great game. And that great game is the thing that we have to understand is what's operative here. It's what's moving the major players. So I don't see Trump. I've never seen Trump as a plaything of Israel. I have seen Trump as a guy navigating a very complex situation inside US politics because of Israel, right? You have a domestic policy, you have a domestic situation where he's got to keep rhinos on side in order to keep order from being impeached. You've got, and the same thing on the Democrat side. Like there are Democrat neocons, right? Hillary Clinton is a perfect example. So is Barack Obama, by the way. Okay. Different wings of the same bird of prey, but at the end of the day, no different than Lindsey Graham or Ted Cruz or any of the other assholes, right? And so the interesting part about that is understand that that's part of it. Israel is also a very important cog in actually ending the great game, because everything in the great game in the Middle East turns on the Israeli-Iranian conflict. I think we can all agree about that, whether you want the Iranians to win or the Israelis to win or not, or both. As far as I'm concerned, I want to tie in a lot of injuries, which is so far what I've gotten. Though I do believe that in this case, Israel is going to wind up on the better end of this round. They did not in the last round. Now, go back to the 12-day war last year, and I'm going to kind of try and set up where my head is on this. Why? Because I've gone through an evolution on my understanding of the situation since during that 12-day period. When I had the insight, literally almost like on a podcast one day, I said, look, stop. Iran's nuclear weapon is the forever war. It's a program. It's a thing. It's the game itself. Okay. Think of that thing as a thing. Okay. Because that thing is the thing that everybody's reacting to. So, hey, everybody, here's your anxiety. Okay. Now, some people have been propagandized to believe, and I used to be one of these people, that say, well, the only way for Iran to exist is to have a nuclear weapon so that they can stop being bombed by the United States. Really? That's a lot of really good neocon British propaganda, because it's not true. The idea that a chaos agent like this can have a nuclear weapon is insane. We have to stop being in this framework that the proliferation of nuclear weapons and nuclear blackmail is a good idea. Mutually assured destruction, bad idea. Everybody should reject it whole cloth as a doctrine of any form, any way, manner, shape, or form. Because the minute you do that, now you're accepting the fact that, it would be okay for somebody else to go, threat to national security, I'm going to nuke you. Really? So all somebody has to do then is create an existential threat for nuclear power, and everybody in the world over gets blackmailed and put into the ultimate version of fight or flight. Right? So how about no? How about I reject that? So now, the minute I started watching this play out again, and I kept watching the Iranians negotiate. They negotiate exactly the same way that the Ukrainians negotiate. They walk in, they make maximal friggin' demands. They appear to agree on a variety of things. And then at the last moment, they always say no. Who does that? Who's coaching them on that? It's always Boris Johnson, Winston Churchill, this guy, that guy. All through history, you go through and you look at Hitler, you look at all of this stuff, and you will see the exact same thing over and over and over again. Maximalist demand, appear to negotiate, try to be the reasonable one, and then at the last minute, nope. So you got to ask yourself, whose asset are they? Because it's clear that the tracksuit midget is Britain and Europe's asset, because they want to war with the Russians.
I mean, I'd push back.
Zelensky, the tracksuit midget, right? It's so use him as a model. Now go look at Iran.
Yeah, okay? I used to negotiate for a living. I worked for an insurance company for better part of 15 years. And, I did a lot of different things, but among them, I ended up settling early in the career and late in the career, settling claims with a lot of like body shops in the LA area. And we all know who is in the LA area. Mm-hmm. So those type of negotiations that we're seeing with Iran, I saw day to day in those shops that, might have been in, I don't know, Beverly Hills, Westwood. I mean, so it might be that those types of negotiations are reflective of City of London coached state actors such as Zelensky, which Boris Johnson flew in and literally told him
Clearly.
what to do. As far as Iran is concerned, sure, it's certainly possible. At the same time, though,
I got
it could
tired
just
of
be
it.
that they're doing what they do.
It is, but you can say that. But when you see the same pattern go on for 15 years, while they then turn around and walk in, Steve Witkoff came out and said this the other night. And as far as I'm concerned, Witkoff has been pretty straightforward and pretty much on the up and up here. Came out last night on Fox News and said they walked into the negotiations and we have enough 60% uranium for 11 nuclear bombs. Let's negotiate. You know what that is? That's a flex. That's a typical Iranian flex to say, we're now in a position where you have to listen to our bullshit because no one is going to call us on it because we're so fucking powerful. I'm over this bullshit. I am so over this game because Iranian propaganda is very, very good. The Persians are very smart people. I take nothing away from their ability to bamboozle the freaking world. I bully on them for trying to play this game. But at some point, someone's going to call that bluff. Someone's going to say, you know what? I don't care. Oh, that is exactly why I've parked if I'm Donald Trump, I parked 2 aircraft carriers and half of the U.S. Air Force off your coast. You're not going. I don't think you have gotten the memo yet. You're still listening to your handlers in London and Brussels and Paris and wherever, and Berlin. Oh, by the way, just keep negotiating just keep stringing Trump along. He really doesn't want to go to war because he's weak, because he's narcissist. He's only doing this because he's vain and he wants his head on Mount Rushmore. That's what these people think. I have talked to people who've been in the room with the von der Leyens and the Starmers and the Macrons and the rest of them and all their staffers, and they all say the same thing. They actually believe this bullshit. Okay? And they believe that they can just wait Trump out, go to the midterms, get rid of him, no matter what happens. And then business as usual after that. Iran gets their nuclear weapon. The Russians and the Chinese honestly, I don't think the Russians want the Iranians to have a nuclear weapon. I don't ever think that the Russians wanted them to have a nuclear weapon. The Chinese, on the other hand, I don't care. Because the Chinese are amoral. And the older I get, the more as much as I want to see the Chinese, the Russians, and the Americans kick the Europeans' ass, I still don't trust the Chinese. Any more than I trust the Iranians, any more than I trust the Israelis, any more than I trust the Russians, any more than I honestly trust most Americans that are in positions of power.
I think it's the survivorship thing.
Okay, so now, right, they all have their interests. And if you craft a milieu where everybody's interests are maximized to the best of their ability, they're eventually going to take the deal. Except somehow Iran never takes the deal. Somehow Ukraine never takes the deal. Why is that? Why? Maduro took the deal in Venezuela. We parked an aircraft carrier and a whole bunch of radar, and we blanketed the thing, and we said, sorry, London, no false flags are happening. Blanketed the whole freaking thing. No ships in or out. No moving men and material. No drugs. No this, no that on the oil tankers or the flatbeds or whatever. No Toyota Hiluxes and MREs and 40-foot containers. The whole 9 yards.
He brought up the Hilux. I love it.
All of it. Every friggin' bit of it. Got it down. Negotiate with Maduro. Maduro takes the deal. We exfiltrate him. We bring him into protective custody. We wipe out his Praetorian Guard on site and allow the civilian government to take over in Venezuela. What people of a libertarian bent have to wrap their heads around is that there are plenty of non-state actors that are worse than governments. This is a hard thing for most libertarians to wrap their heads around. And I was one of them for many, many years. We have the propaganda that we've all kind of, we've all read Rothbard, we've all read Hoppe, we've all read Rockwell, we've all read Ron Paul. The state is the ultimate evil, and anything private is by definition better. That is completely and utterly wrong.
Well, I think not only
because government is a mechanism by which to enforce non-state actors to be really terrible people. So now what happens when you turn around and you take the government that had been protecting and working with these terrible people, and there we have aspects of our government that are still doing it. There are still CIA guys out there running their operations and trafficking kids and running guns and running drugs, and same thing with MI6 and same thing with the Mossad, the same thing with French, whatever the French shitty intelligence services is and name is and whatever. They're all doing it, right? Chinese, Russians, all of them. They're all doing it at some level. But when the American government finally says, you know what, we're not playing that game anymore. And you've got an overwhelming preponderance of evidence that we have a American administration that is engaged in that fight to say, we're going to stop this bullshit. Last week went in with the Mexican government to take out friggin' El Mencho in central Mexico. Let's start shutting down the cartels after spending a year getting rid of a lot of the gangbangers on American soil to minimize the amount of blowback domestically. Pretty straightforward. Get rid of the guys that Biden brought in. Get rid of them. Watch all of their political allies, the Democrats, the rhinos, and everybody else run interference. Whose people are they? We all know at the end of the day, when you start to really dig into all of this shit, everything winds up back in London. Doesn't wind back up in Tel Aviv. Are there guys in Tel Aviv that are working with the guys in London to continue this? Of course there are. If I were London, I'd have guys in Moscow. I'd have guys in Hong Kong, Venezuela, Cuba, Sri Lanka, UAE, everywhere. You know why? Because it's cover. You can always point to that guy over there. He's the real problem, not us. If you're going to run the big friggin' network, you stay in the shadows. You make somebody else the bad guy. So, Israel, they're a convenient bad guy. Iran, they're a convenient bad guy. Ukraine, Russia, he's a continued bad guy. But let's just keep doing it. Constantly make us fight over these people who we both hate, and rightly so, because they're shitbags. The real shitbags are getting away with all of it. And it's because they're in the financial markets, and you can see where the real pressure is hitting them now. So as far as I'm concerned, I wanted Trump. I'll be honest with you. I did not. I expected Trump to do something about Iran. I expected that that the Iranians and Trump had a deal and that they were going to go through the motions. That's what I really thought was going to happen. I'm with my friend Alex Craner, was convinced of this. I mean, Alex and I chatted about this yesterday on Sean Newman's podcast. And then the Israelis at the end, the Iranians at the end of the day did that flex. And then, honestly, all of the military people that I've been able to befriend over the course of the last couple of years, they're all saying the same thing. The IRGC was trying to cobble together at the last minute a nuclear weapon. They had the friggin' thing. They had the warhead over North Korea that they paid for. They were just trying to mate the thing to the ballistic missile, and they were trying to go for nuclear breakout. And at some point, they flexed, and Trump said, "That's enough. That's enough. You are not taking me seriously." And at some point, like, you know, I've got pretty well trained dogs now, because I learned that you just don't sit there and go, "Kamina, come on, Kamina, come over here." Kamina. No, you go over when the dog doesn't respond to you the first time you say, "Come here." You go over to the dog, you pick the dog up by her collar, and you drag her back to where you want her to go. You do that 3 times, and that dog will never, ever cross you ever again. Doesn't matter the breed. I've done this with terriers. Uncut, while there's a bitch in heat over there. No, you get your ass right over here. Yes, sir. Same thing. The Iranians always thought that they were going to be able. It was going. Oh no, Eddie. Because that's what everybody's been telling us to do, and negotiate with them that way. Seriously, it's been going on for years, Nick, and I'm tired of it. And I had my fill of it last summer. when they started playing the same bullshit game again and threatening us with nuclear weapons again. And I'm like, you know what? I choose to disbelieve that the Iranians are the good guys and that the Israelis are the only bad guy. I think they both suck.
Yeah.
And boom. And the ones that happened, I was like, oh my God, this is exactly what's going on. And then and I told Alex, I remember doing it on a podcast one day. I told Alex, I said, we were going through this. I said, Alex, if the Iranians continue to make like they have not had their nuclear weapons program destroyed, because Trump has given them the out. It doesn't matter whether Trump actually bombed Fort Al or didn't into bits or didn't. What mattered was that the narrative had been set. Israel's casus belli was now gone because Trump declared it over. Iran now no longer had to pursue a nuclear weapon, and they can come back into the fold because Trump was giving them that out. Hey, let's negotiate. Yeah, it's a deal whose parameters are irrelevant because we both agree at this point that we're not going to do a nuclear weapon, right? Everybody had their out last June. This thing was over. Except the Iranian. I said, but I told Alex, but Alex, if they turn around and keep trying to say, well, our nuclear program's not really over, we're going to be able to do this, we're going to rebuild it, and we're going to come back. If they keep doing that, you know who they work for. You know who's telling them to do that. And I'm right that they're both, the red ants and the black ants in this particular ant jar are both being armed and operated and puppeteered by the same people, because it's to their advantage to keep the chaos going and to bind the United States down in a war we can't win.
Yeah, I look
at their goal. We've avoided it in Ukraine, we've avoided it over Taiwan, and they're trying to do it over Tehran, and we're not going to stand for it. What Trump is going to do is he's just going to keep bombing them. He's going to keep doing what I just said about the dog. He's going to go walk over and go grab him by the leash, drag him by the collar, drag him back down, make him sit down, and go, oh, look, and then leave. And 6 months from now, if they try this shit again, we'll bomb them too, because at some point, you have to deal with feral assholes, and you only deal with feral assholes by putting them in their place and then treating them with respect afterwards. The Iranians have chosen not to do that. The same thing with the Ukrainians. The Ukrainians are doing the exact same thing, and ungodly, the Canadians are trying to play the same game. Mark Carney is playing the exact same game. He's been slapped down 100 times by Trump, playing the exact same fucking shit-ass City of London bullshit, whining, estrogenic, as Ian Burlingame would put it, estrogenic bullshit game. Fuck these people. Fuck us having to sit here and be blackmailed by these fucking assholes. Fucking smack them in the mouth and be done with it and move on with our lives so that we can all raise our kids and not have to be blackmailed over nuclear fucking weapons. We should all be outraged that any of us are still talking about this, arguing about it. Our government, sometimes the government is the only one who can do it. We have the biggest air force in the world is operated by the U.S. Air Force, right? The second largest air force in the world is the U.S. Navy. Okay? We have the motive, the means, the opportunity, and the assets to do the right thing here. And sometimes you just have to go, yeah, this is the just war. Yeah. They aggressed us. You. And the people you're actually trying to take down are the ones that are trafficking our children. Stealing 65% of our money in taxes. Making us renters on our own property. Saddling us with 4% unrealized capital gains taxes every year on our homes. Okay? That's the British system. That ain't the Jews, man. This system predates them taking over, coming out of, predates the Orange Revolution and all of that. This is old. And I understand all that, but my goal is to focus everybody on the real problem that's in front of you today. You fix that, you fix all of this other bullshit. And we can stop litigating history through the lens of whatever it is that some asshole's trying to gaslight you into believing is true. Fix this. Yeah. You want to fix the money? This is how you fix the money to fix the world. And then whether Bitcoin's a part of that or gold or whatever, I don't give a shit.
Yeah, so
That's
let's
my
litigate a
argument.
little bit. I think that one thing we have to pay attention to, right, is you have these countries that are effectively a creation of the City of London Corp. You have
Mhm.
Israel, Balfour Declaration, David de Rothschild. You could argue that it's a
Iran, modern state of Iran was created by was created by City of London,
mhm.
right?
So all of that to say, there's people. There's actually now a narrative going around that in our circles, hey, beware the narrative that they're going to say Iran is City of London. And well, guess what? Hitler was created by them too. And, I think by the end, they're pretty sure he wasn't the City of London. But I think that, we have to make room for the possibility that these are rogue actors that were progenited, if you will, by the City of London, and perhaps they have their own agenda. My gestalt of the Middle East when it comes to Israel is that it seems that they are kind of fighting everybody all the time. I'm just like from a person watching TV before I got into
Right,
any of this stuff. Israel's always
right.
like fighting people. If you look around, they seem to like to be surrounded by failed states. It's in their
Sure.
doctrine to take over all this land, and it's their own version of their own survivorship. And everybody wants to take over the world. Who was it that was saying it? Oh gosh, it's one of the people that's in our circle that was saying how, if you go to, it was Marty Armstrong. You go to Turkey, they want
Mhm.
to resurrect the Turkish Empire. You go to England, they want to resurrect the British Empire. Everybody wants their empire.
Yeah,
So
right.
it's this. Everybody's one big happy dysfunctional. Let's f each other family. But when and this is going to start going towards like, we don't have any dual citizenship Iranian people running our government. We don't have any dual citizenship Italians or Greeks running our government. We got an awful lot of Israelis. So I
Yeah.
could sit here and we could litigate for a very long time about
Mhm.
how Israel has a very outsized influence on what we have going on here in this country. I don't think anybody would argue it.
I'm
Um,
not, and in no manner, shape, or form would I argue that either. I see it, I don't like it, but I also just I caution people when you start when someone look. I'm going to put it to you this way, Nick. This is what I mean. Look, if you want my honest opinion, 3 years ago or 2.5 years ago, before 10/7, I'm like, I'm sitting there going, I'm sitting there going, yeah, it's probably all the Jews. Like, you know
yeah,
what
I
I
mean,
mean? I mean, like everybody else, I'm like, I'm watching it, but then why and why? Because because the heuristic was very simple. He who we're not allowed to argue about or we're allowed to criticize is the people that rule you, right? You've heard that 1,000 times. I've
yeah,
lived by that at times. We've all lived by it. Well, I got news for you. The real level up is when you realize that you're not allowed to bitch about London.
I'll bitch about them all goddamn day. But I will
I
say
know, I
this.
know, you and me both, but
Yeah.
we're in a, what I'm saying is
Yeah, yeah.
on
We're not
10/9
going to
on
get fired for
10/9 of 2023, 2 days after, like honestly, beyond 10/8, it all of a sudden you started to see the anti-Semites come out of the woodwork.
it. It was like
Okay.
a switch
That
got
was
flipped.
allowed. They happened was the social media, they just turned the squelch button off on social media. We watched it happen in real time. Like Dexter White and I watched it happen in real time. And at that moment I said, and my first instinct was like, oh my God, we can actually like start speaking freely again about this stuff, right? And I remember Dexter just turning to me and go, dude, they're setting everybody up. They're gonna let everybody have their thing. They're gonna let them all, and then eventually, you know what's gonna happen? Then everybody's gonna out themselves, and then
Yeah.
a year and a half from now, when Trump loses the election, or when they get the next election, you know what they're going to do? They're going to
We'll
round all
shut
those
everybody
people up. They're going
down.
to send them to Guantanamo. They're going to deplatform them all and everything else. You could see it coming a mile away. And then Trump survives Butler. And I said all during 2024, I said they're going to use his closeness to Israel to try and tank his reelection campaign. I said this. I was shocked and amazed, and they didn't do it. Well, they didn't do it because he had become a messianic figure after surviving Butler. So they moved it out into his first term when he actually tried to implement his agenda. Then they resurrected Epstein. Then they started the whole process then. And the entire time during that, they were building Nick Fuentes and all these people into the quote the counter MAGA movement, right? Allowing the zeitgeist to like run away with itself. And again, this isn't to say that Israel isn't again. I despise Netanyahu and I despise the Jewish Zionists as much as I despise the Christian Zionists. I can understand why, if you're Jewish, you can be both an anti-Zionist and an Israeli patriot. I can understand that. I don't happen to, that's not my personal opinion on any of this stuff, but I can understand that. I do not see those as two mutually exclusive positions. As a person who's neither a Jew nor Israeli in any way that I know of, or anything else along those lines. I haven't done a 23andMe on my ancestry. Is there some Jewish in my ancestry? Probably. I'm from my family's from southern Italy, for Christ's sake. But as far as I know, I go back, I'm Italian, right? So my point is that, I'm not practicing anything. I was raised Roman Catholic, for Christ's sake. My point is that I don't have a dog in that hunt. Like, emotionally, traditionally, in any way, I have no dog in this hunt. I can look at this and go, yeah, but I can also respect the fact that, Jews want a place. I get it. I'm not saying that the way they got it was right or wrong or indifferent. I'm not litigating history here. Okay. Well, I'm looking at the situation as it exists now. I'm not here to blame. I'm not going to sit here and do the Arabs deserve reparations thing, or let's talk about what Vancouver, what they're trying to do out in Vancouver to give the city back to the freaking to the Indians. I'm like, okay, well, why don't we take? I'm thinking as an American, I'm like, cool. That means we can take over all of British Columbia with a couple of cases of Jim Beam. Okay, like that's the way I'm looking at it.
Right.
All right. So, understand, folks, like when we stop, like your biases don't matter. Your opinions and effect don't really matter. This is what's happening. And everybody who has an agenda to advance will use all of that against you. So I saw on 10/8 that they were turning around and allowing this to happen. And I took a step back, got out of my emotional state, took a step back and went, oh, why would they do that? Oh, because Israel as a City of London asset is now a rapidly depreciating asset, because there are forces now moving to liberate Israel as an asset from this old game. Maybe Israel is even wanting to, I don't know, be independent. There's a definite movement within Israeli politics for this. It's never talked about. All that's ever talked about are the goddamn Zionists. And the minute you started asking simple questions like that, I'm telling you, folks, I got people screaming at me that, you're either anti-Israel because of what they're doing in Gaza, or you're a Zionist. Shill. There was no room in between. And I kept saying, I'm in the middle. I don't care. I don't like the Iranians. I don't like the Palestinians. I don't like the Israelis. I don't like the Turks. I don't like any of these freaking people. I think they all suck. And that made me everybody's asshole.
Of course, yeah. You can't please them all.
But what's important is that I became everyone's asshole from every perspective, which told you that I was right to stay in the middle.
You and I have something in common there. I'm not quite as in the middle as you are. I have some issues right now with what's going on with Zionism, but what I will say. We
British construct that grows right out of the Schofield Bible and all this bullshit. It's all terrible.
Yeah, and that's all.
It was dumb. It was created by Brits.
And this is all history that at least our crowd gets. I know most crowds don't. And what the Schofield Bible is. So but setting all all these aside, right? Like I make room for nuance.
Sure.
And if I'm kind of like, nuance is a double-edged sword, because sometimes you have to actually put the nuance away and aim at the target and make something happen. But at the same time, in my opinion, the assessment of any given target does require nuance such that you choose the right target. That said, we're now in a situation where in the Middle East, we're fighting. There are those who believe that Iran can still make this very painful for the U.S. I'm told the U.S. ships are far away right now. They're in the Indian Ocean because they don't want to get hit by the anti-ship missiles. And just based on even 25-year-old real military simulations, Iran could take down the Navy if they wanted to. It would probably result in Iran turning into green glass. So there's all these counterbalances and what could happen, what might not happen. And we're all reading, as me and V like to say, other people's email. But given what at least you do know about what's going on out there, or at least what we think we know of the simulacrum that is the internet, How do you see this playing out? I know.
Yeah, I know. I groan not because you're asking me the question. I know the question's coming. I
Yeah.
groan because I don't. It's funny. I want to believe that I know some things about all of this, right? We all do. The truth of the matter is that I'm going to preface. I'm going to answer the question. I'm not going to body swerve away from it. I'm going to answer the question, but I'm going to first preface that question by saying none of us have any idea what's actually going to happen in a week.
Yeah. By the way,
I'll tell you what.
Like, I'm a trader. People ask me, what's Bitcoin going to do? And I'm like, well, it could be this, it could be that, it could be the other. And as we approach these different branches, we'll have a better idea of what it might be. So understand that I'm okay with you answering the question as you're about to answer it.
Okay. So what I'm going to say is this. So I said that it's funny. I have spoken to no less than 15, maybe 20 different people who I really respect, whose opinions on this I respect, not including people in my Slack server, not including, everybody I've done a podcast with, people I've talked to privately, blah, 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 blah. Everybody has a different version of reality of what's going to happen next. If you take, and that includes mine, if you take all of those stories and you put them together, you still don't have a good picture. That in and of itself is very interesting. It's actually weird because in the first 48 hours of the 12-day war, I was confused. Once I saw 200 missiles on Friday night, or 100 missiles on Saturday night, 50 missiles on Sunday night, 12 missiles on Tuesday night, I'm like, this is over. By the time we got the 50 missiles on Sunday night, I was like, this is over. And then I was moving into what's Iran thinking here? Oh, wow. Yeah, no, the Russians aren't going to come to their aid. This is not going to happen. That was very clarifying. This was very clarifying. Okay. And so all this noise, we can throw that one away. We can throw that opinion away. And then all of a sudden and all that was left was Iran's nuclear program is the forever war. Fuck Iran, fuck them, and fuck who they work for. In my mind. Okay. Fuck whoever's telling them to pursue this strategy. Let's just put it that way. Now, in this scenario, it's probably going to take us another few days. As of right now, we're 96 hours into it. This morning, I read a great post from Marty Bent at PFCC 21, right? We all know Marty in the Bitcoin space, about helium, about how China didn't want to be dependent upon helium or the United States for helium, so they outsourced their helium production, their helium supply to Qatar, right? Qatar, being a natural gas producer, major natural gas producer, produces a lot of helium, which is necessary for cooling chips and the high-end lithography and all that stuff. It's incredibly important. Can't do modern chips, can't do any of this stuff without a supply of helium. The United States has got a massive advantage in that. And the IRGC is hitting all of Qatar's LNG facilities today.
Yes, they are.
Now, if the IRGC's bread is buttered by the Chinese buying their oil, what in the fuck is going on? So I don't have a good answer for you. And oh, by the way, the Qatar is flying sorties over Iran now this morning. Confirmed. Those guys that all the true MAGA crowd over at fucking Steve Bannon's crib were complaining about earlier in the year, the Marjorie Taylor Greens, the Thomas Masseys, and the Robert Barnes, and all those fucking assholes. Oh, how can you put these terrible people on, and teach them how to fly like they bought the freaking planes? This is what we always do when we sell people planes. What the fuck's wrong with you?
Yeah, they're teaching them how to fly.
And that's paying dividends because the Qatari Air Force is now flying cap, bombing Iran in response. So I'm not telling you right now, I got confounding signals coming out of Qatar. Qatar is up until last year, cut our city of London cut out. UAE, the place where City of London is going to decamp to after they destroy what's left of actual England. City of London is a concept, folks. It's not a place. Right now, it's the square mile in London. They want to move that somewhere else. They're decamping.
Well, hold on.
Either the UAE, and they were going to decamp the UAE in India and Mumbai.
This is what people don't get. This, like, I got into it with what is a person who I generally consider very intelligent on Discord last night, and I was talking about City of London, Israel being a problem, and he's like telling me I'm pointing at a city and a country. I'm like, oh my God, dude, this guy's supposed to be smart. Like, City of London is a corporation. Okay.
Yes.
And it's not a bunch of British people, although I'm sure they're involved. Like, the way I understand City of London, it's a lot of old world Europeans, yes, and British. And by the way, Zionists, by the way,
and Jews.
Lots of Jews.
I want City of London destroyed as a concept. And you know what's going to happen there? A lot of some really shitty Jews, with the population of really shitty Jews, is also going to go down as a consequence. And really shitty Dutch, and really shitty Italians, and really shitty Germans, and really shitty French. You want to know something? Because being a shitbag is not an ethnicity, folks.
Not an ethnicity. It's just the other thing is, when I say Israel, I mean international Zionism. Now, I am of the opinion, and this is going to maybe not be something people want to hear, but I do believe that, look, I'm not Jewish. So it is not for me to police that group. They need to police themselves. And I know there's a lot of, V was telling us about anti-Zionist enclaves near where he lives on the East Coast. There are anti-Zionist Jews out there. They've had rabbis who publicly come out and say, we don't need a country, we have a law. So there's, they're not all one people. But in my opinion, at this point in the game, if you are of the tribe, then I need to see you openly trying to fix the problem, or I'm going to look at you and be like, yeah, I don't know. Like, I'm not sure yet. Like, there's just like, I didn't personally drop bombs on anybody in the Middle East, but as an American, if I just go to the Middle East, I might get killed. Why? Because I'm American. We all have a responsibility to police our own. So that's where I'm going to leave that comment for now. But you were talking about destroying the City of London, and I just wanted to like, if we don't have any nuance, everybody, that's going to get us killed.
I know. I understand that completely. Like, this is why I'm like, I understand this is okay. Let me make it abundantly clear. I have a lot of friends in Europe, having done this now for almost 9 years, right? A lot of people who are out there like, dude, come to Europe. We'll put you up. We'll take care of you. We'll take you around. I could spend 2 months in Europe and probably never spend $1 on a hotel, right? You think I'm going to pass through a European airport right now?
Negative.
You think I'm? What do I look like? What do I look like? I was born yesterday. Like, I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer, and I'm certainly not particularly freaking savvy when it comes to this shit. But ain't no way.
Yeah,
dude. I gotta go to Canada at the end of the month.
I was gonna say, I'm worried
about that.
I live near Canada. Like, I would love to go, but I'm not. I mean, I went last year. I went to Canada. Even then, I was kind of like, yeah, I don't know. I remember the first time Sean Newman invited us, Alex and I, up to Lloydminster for an evening. And next time I looked at me like, dude, don't say this, don't say this, don't say that, and watch for RCMP. They're everywhere. And he was worried about them 4 years ago. Okay, and I'm like, okay, like, at this point. Thankfully, I've got a direct flight into Calgary that I don't go, up to Toronto first and then over, right? You know what I mean? Like, yeah, they might treat you a little better there. I would just drive up, but either way, I'm not religious. I was raised like you, Catholic. I have a vowel for my last name. Your family is Calabrese, right?
Yeah, it's that area, and I believe, and I remember, I'm not. Oh, to be honest, you know how American I am. I'm not really even sure where most of my family comes from. I never asked. I believe I think it's one part of it's from Naples, and the other part is possibly from Calabria in that area. It's all southern Italy, obviously.
Yeah.
When I had hair, it was all black, folks, and it's a little curly too, by the way.
Yeah, I've got the black beard, but I ended up brown hair. I'm a mixed blood. I got other stuff, but most of the blood, the largest component.
I've got my mom had a fro along with my sister, one of my sisters, and my brothers. I mean, like, to think that there's not Moorish blood in there is like, it's crazy. Of course,
we definitely, you know how it is with my grandfather. He's still with us. He's almost 100, and you know
Oh,
how it
wow.
is with the old Italians. They don't like the blacks. They just don't like them. It is what it is. Well, we did a
Oh,
23 andme.
I think people think I'm racist. Forget it. You should have met my grandfather.
No,
My God.
my
Oh my
grandfather
God.
dropped these
I'll
on.
never forget. I'll never forget watching the 1982 Oscars with my grandfather, and and it came up, and I was watching it because at the time I was like, I wanted Blade Runner to win the best special effects
My
because it
favorite
was
movie all time, by
Blade
the way.
Runner. I was like one of the 5 fans of the movie in 1982, sitting there with my Italian grandfather, and they're going through the nominees, and one of them was Tron by Steve Lisberger, and my grandfather sort of, why is it always got to be the goddamn Jews?
Great movie. Bruce
Like,
Boxleitner. in there.
it's a great movie. I've seen Tron a billion times. I spent the summer of 1982 in the movie theater. So
See, Blade Runner is my favorite movie all time. Not to stay on this for too long. One of my Tron might be my second favorite. I've seen it
wow.
probably 100 times, and Blade Runner just as many.
Yeah, no, I saw Blade Runner the day it came out in the theaters. So 1982, that summer, my mom took it upon herself to actually try and reconnect with her son. So she would take Fridays off, and we'd go, and she'd take me to and I could go to the 14 plex, and I go watch movies all day. So if I saw The Road Warrior once in the theaters, I saw it 5 times.
Yeah,
Tron, I saw 8 times in the theaters. The World According to Garp, I saw like 5 times. Blade Runner, I saw at least 3 or 4. And I would just go, and she would go shopping, and I would sit in the movie theater for like 4 hours. I saw the summer of 1982. I saw everything multiple times. All those iconic movies, I saw them all multiple times. So
and to the concept of like, you got the Tucker Carlson, there's no such thing as blood guilt or anything like that. I do believe that people need to police their own. And guys like How's English is a great guy. I've got I got Jewish friends. They're all that, the typical thing to say for somebody.
Right.
But the reality is that we've come to a point now where I would be assigned blood guilt just because of the color in my face. So it's come to a time where we're in that world now, and the Nick Fuentes of the world are not helping in that regard to give any nuance to this person might be good or bad. But I guarantee you, his lawyer's probably of the tribe. So
and Holly and I have been friends for a very, very long time, and I know where his biases are, and I know, and I'm going to do a show with him on Thursday. I haven't talked to him, and I'd love to get, we're going to find out what's going on, and and I know that it's like, hey, look, at the end of the day, like, we all have, put your thing on the table as best you can. You put your perspective on the table as best you can, and you put your track record of making calls on the table as best you can, which is why anybody listens to us in the first place. I mean, that's what I do for a living, right? I make calls, I talk about them, people go, wow, or he's full of shit. And that's a good thing, right? And I'm okay with, both sides of it. I don't like being, Nick, I'm not gonna lie, I hate being wrong. Ask my wife, right? None of us like being wrong. So, of course, if you hate being wrong, then you're going to work really, really hard to be right. And that means you're going to go and try and find that thing, that root cause, that is the thing that you can turn. I'm an old chemist, right? I used to do sincere research. So I'm always looking for the fulcrum on which the reaction mechanism turns, right? And once you know that, and you're doing a multivariate analysis of how to get that, to turn that thing, it may be, I got to turn that dial that much, and that one, and there it is. And then the magic happens. And in chemistry, that is the way it works, by the way. If it's a complex chemical system, you got to take 5 different variables, and then the concentrations, temperature, pressure, and then put them together, and then tweak them and then if you do this, you get nothing. You do that, you get nothing. You do this, you get everything.
Yeah,
if you're an organic chemist, it's how you get higher reaction, how you get higher percent yields, right?
Yeah,
on your reaction. So
fortunately, I speak some of that language. My wife's actually better at it. She was a microbiologist before she moved on to being a chiropractor. Now she's retired because we're raising a family.
Good for, and that's awesome.
Yeah, it's great. So in that vein, the Middle East, very moving parts. We don't know everything. One of the possible iterations or theoretical iterations is that this goes on for a certain period of time, and then we get some kind of a break from it. And I know it's very difficult. Even now, we're still within, what is this, Tuesday? So we're still 4 or 5 days in, and the 48-hour rule, I think, actually continues to apply because we're still at a 48-hour window. You don't know what happens, and 48 hours later, you start to get info, and even the info that we get through the internet is extremely questionable. So all of that to say, like, if you're going to leave the viewers with sort of maybe your prime projection, if you will, to use some
Sure. I said I wouldn't body swear. I just got lost in the other stuff.
I did that to you. I started talking about Blade Runner. Like, we just had a little.
So what I think is the most likely outcome. Trump is not going to commit ground troops to Iran. If you look at the assets he's put in place, all you've got is air and naval. It's not possible for him to move ground troops into Iran because that takes the kind of logistical lift that we're just not seeing. And if anybody says anything otherwise, I refer them to Dexter White's maxim: facts matter. There are no facts which tell you that we're moving a large numbers of troops into position to subjugate Iran. On the other side, the other facts that matter are that all the neocons are out there crashing out saying Trump doesn't have a plan for what happens next. Yeah, because we don't want to install the MEK in Iran to subjugate the Iranian people again, or whomever. Trump said literally, rise up, we have your back, we will beat these people into the dirt for what they did to you 2 months ago, and let's get something different. Now, get a different outcome. Now, what bothers me is I'm watching the Israelis this morning blow up the 88-person council that got together to pick the next civilian government. And I think it was the Israelis that bombed the friggin' thing. That scares me. This is a fear that Alex Craner brought up yesterday when I was on with him and Susan Kokinda on Sean Newman's podcast. And, you know, when Alex said it, it set me back a minute. I think about it. You're playing. Alex's fear is that Trump is playing with forces beyond his control.
I side with him on that. There's also been supposedly some Mossad operators being caught trying to set bombs, and that might be blamable on somebody else as well. It seems like maybe they don't want the conflict.
And MI6 is doing the same thing in around the region, and that's why you come in with a massive air and naval blanket. Radar blanket so that they can't do something dumb. Okay. That's really important. And that means both the Israelis and the British and everybody else. Okay. It's everyone. Level playing field. We have better radar blanketing coverage. And the truth of the matter is, again, the Iranians have no air defense. None. Zero. None. Whether the Russians turned off the S-400s they gave them or whatever, again, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Whether we knocked them out, the Russians turned it off, this, that, everything. You can believe what you want, doesn't matter. Fact is, we're flying cap, and we have been flying cap over Tehran since the beginning. Practically the whole country. No different than what happened last year. I didn't want to believe it at first. I'm like, dude, they're flying cap over Tehran. They're bombing. Every time somebody lights up a launcher, they're just bombing it.
This is a degradation of our defense system is what that is. Yeah.
And so, again, let's watch to see how it plays out, okay? At some point, there may be members of the IRGC that finally do say, you know what? What do you need us to do? It's possible. It's possible that we're in the process of watching people flip. I can tell you that I see a split between the civilian government and the civilian military and the IRGC. They are saying different things. Different members of different groups are saying different things. I can also tell you it makes sense at this point that if you've wiped out command and control, CNC, across all of Iran, it would look like what they're doing currently. Moreover, this is the thing you really need to start thinking about in terms of phase two is, are there regional commands? Are we going to have regional IRGC commanders then declare themselves local warlord and, try and hold on to because they're gonna be in fear for their life of the people rising up against them and killing them all. Like, so there's going to be a lot of that everywhere, which is why we're hearing reports this morning that Trump has reached out to the Kurds in the north to come in and, I don't know, maybe attempt to stabilize the situation or this or that. And so this is a very, very complicated situation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And it's not going to be easy for anybody going forward. Trump is going to continue to the aerial campaign, as he said, until the job is completed. And the job is taking away Iran's ability to project force beyond its borders. They no longer have that right, given their past behavior. Now, I'm not here to do a whataboutism or what about Israel. It's not here. We're not here for that. This is what Trump is saying and doing. On as far as Israel is concerned, I think at this moment, and believe me, there are forces within Israel that will try and wriggle out from underneath this framework that I'm about to put forward. But I think Bibi works for Trump, and Trump said, you're going to go in and you're going to bomb in Lebanon the rest of Hezbollah's assets. And I'm going to make you look like the bad guy and keep you the bad guy on the world stage. And you're going to do this, and you're going to do this, and you're going to do that. Okay. Lebanon yesterday came out and said the military there will be no more non-state military actors in Lebanon, meaning the military wing of Hezbollah has been removed, has been disaggregated from the state of Lebanon. This is a very important thing that has occurred. That's another node of the axis of resistance that's gone. The other thing we haven't talked about at all is that Trump has shut off the money to all of this. Where's the IRGC going to get money from? They shut the Strait of Hormuz. Who's going to buy the oil? Where are they going to get money from? They can't get it. Are they going to get it from London still? Well, we just knocked out a big network node in Venezuela. We're knocking out another network node in Jalisco in Mexico. You know, if the Russians and the Chinese are working with Trump on this at all, then you got to think that a lot of stuff in Vancouver and Hong Kong and other places are also quietly going away. We're watching private equity firms and private credit firms blowing up now. We're watching things get seized. European assets are getting seized left and right in places like Luxembourg, Switzerland. Big names, right? Big names are going by the board, getting wiped out. That's the Scott Bessent side of the equation. And it's all very, very, very consistent in the conclusion, which is that the old architecture of what we would call City of London and or Davos or the High Table or Venice or whatever, all of that is what's on the chopping block now. And your receipts on this are that the French are pissed off. The UK is reluctantly going along with Trump now after Trump and Bessent basically, for all intents and purposes, started attacking their financial markets. So what does Lloyd's of London do?
Yeah, that was
try to enforce the IRGCs. We're going to shut the straits. Yeah, and then Lloyd's of London. Now, interestingly enough, right before I came on, like literally 11:57, I read a note on a Slack server from one of the guys. And what does he say? Hey, Tom, by the way, I can read the Lloyd's of London announcement as a means by which to get the reinsurers to pay because they need liquidity because they're in trouble everywhere else. I'm like, dude. Oh, no, wow. These are the kinds of little bon mots that the really, really sharp people that I don't, dudes, you see me in the podcast, but behind me, I say it all the time. There's a huge cast of characters that are, that are helping me try to understand some of this. If I don't believe everything I'm given, obviously I filter it through, but what I'm trying to do is find, if I have a skill, my skill is knowing where the signal is versus the noise. And I think I'm pretty good at filtering signal to noise at this point. As far as it comes to geopolitics, financial markets and whatnot. Also, I want something else I want people to look at. The watch bond spreads very carefully, guys. Watch U.S. German bond spreads. This is the ones I watch all the time. U.S. German bond spreads, Italian German bond spreads are very telling for what's going on with the ECB. Right? I'll explain in a second. Also, watch the U.S. UK gilt spread. Just watch the 10-year. You don't have to watch 2-year versus 10 or anything. Just keep it simple. Just watch the 10-year spreads, because the UK is in trouble, because that spread is blowing out since this thing started going. Since the market got wind of what was happening, the US UK spread is blown out 20 basis points in the last 4 trading days. The German-Italian spread is a very interesting one. It's a little esoteric, but I'll try to explain it to you. We all know that Christine Lagarde has been sitting on the German 10-year in order to keep the entirety of the Eurozone bond market from blowing out. And the German Bund is considered like the safe haven asset of Europe. Like when Europeans don't know where to run, when they need to go to ground, they go to the German Bund, right? When they need collateral, they go to the German Bund. The same way that the rest of the world goes to the US Treasury. So within the European Union, they go to the German Bund. So over the course of the last year and a half or 2 years since Butler, Pennsylvania, the German-Italian spread has been dropping, meaning the Italian debt has been being bought preferentially to German debt. It's collapsed by over 140 basis points over the last year and a half. It's a massive move, which tells me a variety of things about the relationship between U.S. investors and their willingness to invest in Italy. It's also a tale of two economies going in opposite directions. The Italian economy is rising. The German economy is collapsing. But every time it spikes, it'll just do a little spike like this. Classic noise. Like an electronic. It almost looks like an electronic noise on a spectrophotometer. You see a little electrical noise. Those happen, and those are timed. I have a huge chart of this. Of every spike is a geopolitical event that went against the EU. Then what happened? And the argument is very simple. Lagarde is holding the spread, and then the minute something bad happens to the EU, she has to sit on the German yield. But in general, the market sells off Europe, and then she doesn't sit on the Italian yield. So the Italian yield blows out to the upside. The German yield stays flat, and the spread widens again.
Okay. Yeah. So basically, it's there. Yeah, I see what's going on here.
So you see what I'm saying?
She's going to make just for that period of time. I don't know
for a couple of days.
Yeah,
until this thing is over. Yeah.
It might be strategic or just a cost thing. She can't afford to sit on both. She's going to sit on the German.
Yeah, it could be. It could be she doesn't have enough money, but she preferentially sits on German and French debt over Italian debt,
which could also very much be a strategy. By the way, I would probably lean towards strategy.
I call spade a spade. I've watched this for so long now. I've been watching Lagarde run a yield curve control program for 40 years on the German Bund. I can sniff this.
Clockwork.
Right? Yeah, like clockwork. Like I can almost tell you, like, on Monday, we bombed Iran. On Monday, Lagarde, the German Italian spread's going to blow out 10 points. If I was a bond trader, I could have made a lot of money with this trade over the years, folks. Oh, by the way, if you're bond traders in the audience, you can make a lot of money with this trade in the future if you really want to, until the ECB goes bankrupt. And the other thing to consider now that here's another prognostication. They're closing the straits. That's a nuclear, and Lloyd's of London is canceling all the contracts. That's the equivalent of a nuclear option. That's like cutting Iran out of SWIFT in 2010. Now, Iran then has to turn around and has to come up with a replacement for SWIFT. The minute they come up with a replacement for SWIFT, you can no longer use that weapon anymore. Remember, first rule of escalation is never go nuclear, because once you go nuclear, you can't back down. You have nowhere else to go. Right?
Yeah, we've had to tell that to fighters. If you have a fight that is not a life-threatening situation, never go for the throat or eyes, because the other person is going to now realize that they might die. Yeah.
Right. Yep. Same thing. Right. Same concept. Never escalate all the way to the end. Right. So the way I'm reading this particular attempt to close the strait, again, Iran's nuclear weapon is the forever war. Okay. Closing the Straits of Hormuz is their nuclear option. It's just like Israel threatening us with nuclear weapons over Iran's, whatever. It's all this bullshit. It's all this maximalist bullshit, right?
Yeah, Samson option.
It's all that Samson option stuff. So now we're watching London do this now, and they've gone there. What happens when someone calls their bluff and someone else turns around and goes, I'll insure those cargoes? Which is what we saw with the Russians and the Iranians over the last 8 years since they were cut out of the London insurance and reinsurance market for oil.
Mm-hmm.
The Russians now have a very viable, or beginning to have a very viable, shipping insurance market that they didn't have before, which is helping to deepen their financial markets, which is helping to make them into a first tier country as a destination for capital. All of these things that, again, this is not a good thing in the long run for London, but if they've made that move, it's because they're desperate.
Well, I'll put it, so we litigated this a little bit in your Slack, as well as in, I moved it over to our Discord as well, so they can see this. I think it was like 150 major ships went ahead and their insurance was canceled. One of the comments made by, Gus Demas, he goes, oh yeah, well, they saw what happened on 9/11 with Larry Silverstein, So in the end, it's the same thing as like, why do we do business with China? They're evil communists. Like, okay, fine. Let's just say they were. Well, at that time in the 90s, if we didn't get in there and do business, every other place would. And we wouldn't have the influence, right? So London, if they're going to leave, by the way, part of that conversation in the Slack had to do, and it was directly from the original post, was that one of the many reasons London can financially, as it said, punch above its weight is because of that insurance business. I got a buddy of mine I used to work with in crypto whose dad worked at Lloyd's. And what they were saying was that Lloyd's is right across the rating agency that gets their information that feeds it to Lloyd's for the actuaries is actually right across the Thames the Thames, I should say, from MI6. Mm-hmm. So, the theory that where you start to go into theory and away from objective factoid is that it might be that the intelligence from Five Eyes, which the U.S. probably does heavy lifting, although I actually think Israel has a lot more than they let on.
Of course.
That might be cut off to MI6. Therefore, the rating practices, the data going into the actuaries might be diminished or cut off in a big way. And therefore, they can't rate this situation. And I worked
right because they can't rate the situation. They had to cut everybody off. And then you ask yourself, well, who cut them out of Five Eyes? That would be Tulsi Gabbard at DNI.
Yeah, they said no more intelligence sharing.
Intelligence sharing over. They started with specific things, and then they just finally just cut them all off. And then you think that Scott Bessent doesn't know that, doesn't understand the implications of that chain of events? I would say he knows. And since he was the guy that was the architect of the trade that broke the Bank of England when he was working with Soros. Mm-hmm. So put it all together, folks, and you're saying to yourself all the way across the line. I remember reading that thread on Slack. I may not have been a part of it, but I know I read it. FYI. Yeah. I try to golden goat tap when I've read something just to let everybody know that I've been in there. And that's the golden goat emoji is mine. Right. That's the only one that you're not supposed to use. It's like the only rule on Slack other than don't call each other cunts.
Unless you're British and it's a term of endearment.
Well, yeah, of course. But only in the Perfidious Albion sub-channel. So I know we're all talking inside baseball here, folks. But that's what we're doing. But that was very illuminating for me, and it really helped me shape what I'm saying. So think of it that way. This is a nuclear option. Maybe they were forced into it because we took away their eyes and their ears. Okay, fine. It doesn't help them. Go back to Europe. The euro has fallen out of bed this morning. The euro is trading at 115 and change.
It has been, and I'm a currency trader. I've had it going on for 6 to 8 months that was supposed to flip, but they continued to force it. My assumption on that was that European money was going to ground because they have no idea what's going to go on. So they were bringing their money home and going to ground.
Very, very, very astute observation. I would agree with that completely.
Yeah, well, V the Gorilla had a lot to do with that observation. His V's intelligence and understanding is top notch.
Yeah. Oh no, he is. I have mad respect for V. So the euro's rolling over. Oil's breaking out. We went from having weak oil, strong euro to strong oil, weak euro at a time when the oil market, now the oil markets are being blown up. And I got to ask the question. This is a very interesting question. What is the IRGC doing at this point? Is it, and it could be and I'm going to I can lay out 4 different scenarios here, and they could all be equally, they're all, I think, equally valid and potentially all possible at the same time to greater or lesser extent. One, they're pissed off that they were abandoned by their European handlers, and they're lashing out against their European handlers. That would mean, hey, let's attack all of the French and British intelligence assets. 2, it could be Ian Burlingame's thing. Oh no, the deal was made, and now we're just wiping out all of their assets in the region for Trump, because Trump can't wipe those out because they're still technically allies. That was the argument that EM made the other day when we were on with
Tommy
Harrigan and Colonel Watkins. Number 3, command and control has been gone, and they're programmed. That's the junior commanders. They were given if this happens, do this. Okay, we did it.
Yeah, they then break the plastic and pull the paper out, and
yeah, exactly. Wing attack, missile attack plan R to, invoke Dr. Strangelove. And then, the last thing is, the most important, which is, oh, really? This is Davos telling them, start the process to burn everything down, because if we can't win, no one can win. And those are all perfectly valid outcomes here. The last one could be the outcome, regardless of anything else. And so, what I said to before we did this at noon today, because I have a podcast I have to do for Newsmax every Tuesday morning. And I told my people there, I said, I'm not going to make any trades here in the portfolio, but if you are feeling anxious, it is time to, just be smart, shop as smart. I sleep better at night knowing that I have savings in the bank and a bunch of money in the account. That's the way the world operates. We're in maximum uncertainty. Money's going to go to ground. And so what I'm seeing across the board is money trying to go to ground. The other thing I've noticed, Nick, in the last 48 hours since Sunday night, when markets reopened, gold, silver, and Bitcoin are now trading together.
Are they now correlated?
48. They're now, in the last 48 hours, they were all up on Sunday night, and now they're all down. So money was moving. So money was moving in. The Bitcoin hit 70 grand when gold was hitting 5,400. And silver was 95, and now they've all reversed. And Bitcoin is actually holding serve now at 68.5. That's interesting. When gold, silver, and Bitcoin, everything got hit this morning, right in the pre-market. I think we're up 7 o'clock or so, and then they just kind of been bouncing around for the rest of the day, a little bit.
It's that's my read. I looked at that. What I was looking at, just my own thesis. Sure. There's a lot of vulnerability in the indices, and so because of the debt structure, where you pretty much have to sell everything to cover certain things, it looked to me like there was a strong chance that the indices might go below local support, and therefore everybody started to get careful, sell off their positions so they could cover their margins and not get liquidated and hurt even more. So that was my thesis, and it just had to do with what was going on in the charts.
Sure.
But, I don't know. I also was wondering.
But the Dow was, while you and I have been sitting here talking, the Dow was put 800 points back on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm watching it now.
Yeah. So, I'm watching both it and the Russell 2K at the same time. They're kind of trading in lockstep at this point.
And then oil finally took its break because, oil gapped up Sunday, but stayed below 80. And then it actually,
right.
It's taken a break, but in the current environment, I think it'll stay above 80 for a minute.
Yeah, no, 82.50 on Brent crude. The bigger question is, and that's always the interesting thing, is what's the Brent WTI spread at this point? It is still $7. It's gapped up from $4, so that works to the United States advantage. The Brent WTI spread is $7. So, by the way, it'll also benefit Japan because we will preferentially export oil to Japan and LNG to Japan over Europe at this point. Mark my fucking words on that. So trade Japan from that perspective, that the United States will give Japan preferential treatment. I honestly think that the bigger winner in all of this is Russia, who's sitting back going, great, now I have all the leverage in the world to get back into the European oil markets, force the tracksuit midget to the friggin' negotiating table, cut a deal with Trump, and start building a pipeline to Tokyo.
What do you
Like,
think?
that's what they want to do.
Oh yeah, after they did back off. Takaishi backed off on the carry trade, and that was prior to what's going on in Iran. So I think perhaps I was wondering why would she signal even backing off? And she did it a few days before.
That's a really good observation. That's a really good observation.
I couldn't because I'm always looking for why or what okay, 5 days later or whatever it was, all of a sudden Iran. So that being the case, I'm interested in taking a look at the WTI spread as. It might be a long-term look. It's not, oh, this happened today, but it might be an indication of the control that City of London's losing on the Brent contract there's no increase on Brent.
Well, like that, and remember, Iran is striking out against the UAE, right? Which is where they were trying to move, Brent was trying to decamp to Dubai. And so now it's going to be this is a big question. Remember, the UAE dirham, all of this stuff is this is all part of how India was getting around the sanctions and blah, 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 blah. So they were building a new oil pricing network outside of City of London. They were decamping to the UAE using India's demand for oil as the means by which to liquefy the contract, blah, 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 blah. And guess what? The IRGC is attacking the UAE too. Again, who are they actually working for now? Because the last thing on my mind is, what if the deal has been made? And the IRGC remnant that exists now is actually doing Trump's bidding, one, and then the Israeli remnant of the City of London is pissed off and trying to do everything imaginable to queer that on behalf of London. And that's the real fight that's existing right now. And that's why we're getting counter signals left and right.
To support that also, you did see the Saudis kicking the UAE out of Yemen as well.
Yep.
The
Saudis have been involved in 4 decisions so far that have been incredibly important. They've supported Trump straight up on all of this.
A lot of Saudi money.
They led the GCC in saying no to the Iranians on all of this after trying to work for the last 2 years to bring them back into the fold. And the 3-4 years, MBS has been working that. von der Leyen puts out this cryptic tweet the other day. It was hilarious, saying, I have spoken to Saudi Crown Prince MBS about security architecture and everything else. Translation, I called MBS to get some oil. He told me to go fuck myself.
Yeah, and then
the Saudis are supporting Pakistan in wiping out the remnant assets in Afghanistan for all that shit that Biden left behind, that Trump's been bitching about for 2 years now.
Oh, that's such a City of London op right there. Like,
yeah,
because they want to destabilize that region, and I think there's a lot of reasons for that that we could go into if there were time. There's not. I think you have.
I'm going to need to cut it down here because I got to get prepped for another show, and I got to rest my voice. But yeah.
Yeah, no, I would say that in part destabilizing that region flies in the face of the BRI too. They want to try to contain China, which I think is an impossible thing. But at any rate, Tom, thank you so much for coming on, and I hope we can do this again.
Of course.
We're going to EM Burlingame, as you know, is back too, so he'll be on in 2 days. We're going to have EM on. Kellerin, I had to move Kellerin. Ben's on our show like every Tuesday,
right?
And my daughter, she fractured her arm last night. My little 2-year-old. Unfortunately, it's a minor, very minor. It's just a buckle fracture. The docs are like, oh yeah, it's just you're just gonna let it heal. We don't even put a cast on it, and she's doing great. She's tough. But all of that was like kind of flowed into this morning, and I got to move Ben and everybody. So long story short, though, the band's getting back together. So we'll have Ben on later this week, EM and everything else, and we'd love to have you back soon, Tom. Thank you for coming on.
Well, whenever the spirit moves, you think I'm going to be, relevant, ping me. You know that.
Oh, we need you, Tom.
I am just a DM on Slack away now, Nick. And by the way, if you need to get a hold of me immediately, that is the best way to get a hold of me.
No, I
I
appreciate it.
monitor it 24/7.
And to be
So,
fair, I'm not always going to agree. But
mhm.
what I do require in my analysis are oftentimes people who I don't agree with, because I just can't have the echo chamber.
Right.
I need to hear all the different pieces. And I mean, you got your finger in a lot of great pieces. So really, thank you so much, Tom. Gold,
You're
Goats, and
welcome.
Guns. Look in the description. Join the Patreon. I've been a member of the Patreon for years, and it's been great.
I greatly appreciate that, Nick, and of course, having a thoughtful and honestly
Yeah. Pleasure's mine,
looking
Tom.
forward to
Thanks.
the next one. Take care. Thank you.
See you, bud.